Turning now to our FI team member insights this week regarding cell-cultured seafood, FI reporter and producer 𝗟𝗏𝗄𝗏 met with Wildtype Foods co-founders 𝗪𝗏𝗂𝗏 and 𝗂𝗏𝗏𝗏 to give us an overview of the cell-cultured industry. Take a look.
So for a lot of our readership and viewership who don't really know too much about cell-cultured technology, could you give me kind of a high-level overview of the process?
We're feeding the cells the same nutrients that they would have within the fish, things like sugars and fats and minerals. But the thing is, when cells grow, they need guidance in terms of how they're going to organize into things like muscle and fat. So we provide them with a structure, and it's basically a plant-based structure. We call it a scaffold, and that gives the cells the right sort of forms and structures to grow within. And we essentially create a nutritionally similar cut of salmon, but just grow that outside the animal.
Tell me a little bit about the total chief reasons for the movement that you decided, hey, I'm going to pursue cell-based technology.
There are a few things that are driving this. One is, for seafood, there's a big reason to innovate, right? So it's this interesting paradox of, on one hand, we're being told by our doctors to eat a lot less red meat and a lot more seafood. But there's this asterisk, which is, but don't eat too much because you'll mercury poison yourself, or you'll expose yourself to antibiotics for farmed fish, or you'll put arsenic and microplastics in your body, right? And so on one hand, we have this super nutritious food that we need to eat with, in some cases, a supply that's really under strain and significantly increasing demand. So we saw this as an opportunity to create, not something that will certainly replace existing forms of seafood, but really add to it or supplement it.
So what steps kind of go into the FDA approval process, and how soon can we expect your product or maybe a similar product to start, becoming more widely available commercially?
Yeah, maybe the first aspect of that is it's not a set out approval process. I think when we began our conversations with FDA, we imagined that maybe there was a checklist for us to fill out. And that's not the case at all. It really was a back and forth. It was a conversation around what are the inputs, what are the things that that go into this process that are different from existing structures or frameworks for creating food.
So that's where you'll begin to find these kinds of products, is in initially restaurants, and then maybe some sushi kiosks in the grocery store. And then eventually, maybe you can go on the Wildtype website and order our product directly from us, or find it at your local grocery store.
How would you respond to kind of the skepticism or questions around this technology?
Anytime there's a new method for making even familiar foods, it's worth having some skepticism. I think that's natural and healthy in a lot of ways. That's our perspective, is that while it seems a little bit crazy, it is actually just the same things that are already in our food supply, just kind of combined in a unique way. And so, we've shown that through many reams of data that we've shared with the FDA, like Ari was saying, in terms of safety and comparing that to how that stacks up against conventional seafood. And because we make this in such a controlled environment, it is really, truly, the cleanest and probably safest seafood that you'll be able to buy. It's just going to take a little bit of time, right? So people can go out to restaurants, try it. It's actually not that weird. Months and years will go by, and this will become a little bit more normal.
What have been some of your greatest successes and challenges along the way?
I'll on the success front, I'll just come back to that example I was just giving about this partnership we had with the Conservation Fund. In a way, from the outside, it might seem like a little bit of a surprising alliance that a company like Wildtype that's creating an alternative, or at least a new source of seafood, would be interested in helping to make sure that the conventional seafood industry remains healthy, right? Yet we don't really see it as two separate things, right? Like, our goal is to have, like Ari was saying, the cleanest, most sustainable seafood available for everybody to enjoy.
I can take the challenge part, which I think is that of time. And the question is, as this planet warms up and fewer and fewer fish are found in the oceans year after year, can we do it in time to have a meaningful impact? I think at least when we as a team think about the urgency behind that, that is the most galvanizing sort of fact, or what we're sort of working against here. It's not so much that can we someday in the future create salmon that is just as good and far cheaper than conventional salmon? Of course. But the question is, how long will it take us to get there? And is that amount of time, are we going to be able to do it in a short enough period of time to have a meaningful impact?
Before we go, let's take a look at what's coming up in the food world. On Tuesday, February 21st at 7:10 a.m. Eastern Time, Walmart will release its Q4 2023 earnings report. Thursday, February 23rd at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time, we will see the GDP release of the fourth quarter and second estimate for 2022 by the Bureau of Economic Analysis. And finally, on Friday, February 24th at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, the University of Michigan will release its latest consumer sentiment numbers. You don't want to miss those events. And that wraps up the very first episode of the FI Newscast. I hope you enjoyed the show. Be sure to tune in next week, same time, same place, and never forget to check out all the great content we offer at www.foodinstitute.com. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you soon.